Good morning. It is a cold and crisp day here in Duluth. I'm on the far west end of Lake Superior. And today I'm going to talk about 5 settings that you should have on your camera to make you a better bird photographer. So come along and enjoy this adventure. Well, I'm going to talk about the 5 settings I believe every photographer or wildlife photographer should be using. Now, next week's video, I'm going to talk about aperture priority and back button focus. But this week, I'm going to talk about the 5 settings. And number 5 is, when does your camera meter? I have my camera set up to, when I push the shutter halfway down, it meters. That means that every shot I take, the camera is metering for every shot. So if I'm taking a picture of a bird flying through a scene, it is metering for every shot that I take. And this is very important in wildlife photography. You don't want it just to meter once and then you start taking pictures, because especially with birds or any kind of wildlife, the situations are constantly changing. I mean, literally within seconds or even half a second, the situation can change. So it's very important that your camera meters between every picture. So tip number 5, set up your camera to meter every time you push the shutter halfway down. Tip number 4, continuous shooting. I think this is one tip that a lot of people overlook, because it just doesn't seem like a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people that I talk to when I'm out photographing birds, don't have it set up. What they do is they have it set up to take single shots. And what continuous shooting is that when you push the shutter down, it will continue to take pictures until the camera buffers out or runs out of room to store stuff and has to copy it to the your storage device on your camera. Now, what I do when I'm taking continuous pictures is I focus on the animal and I start taking pictures. I'll take 3 or 4 pictures in continuous shooting, stop, reevaluate, take 3 or 4 more pictures, stop, reevaluate. And that way there, it gives the camera time to move data from the RAM to your SD or CF card. And 2, it gives you a chance to reevaluate the scene. Now, if I see a bird flying across the scene, I'm just going to keep shooting pictures until that either the camera buffers out or the bird flies away. But if I'm taking a picture of a sparrow or a waterfowl on a pond, I do a lot of that 3 or 4 continue, reevaluate, 3 or 4, reevaluate, 3 or 4, reevaluate. And that way there, you don't end up in a situation where you've taken 75 pictures of a bird and its head is behind a stick. So number 4 is continuous shooting. Tip number 3 is spot metering. I believe this should be the default setting for every camera that's sold in the market. Unfortunately, it's not. What most cameras do is they try to meter for the entire scene. And when you're taking pictures of wildlife, especially birds that are in a bush or something like that, you don't want that. You want the camera to meter for the point that you're focusing on. And that's what spot metering does. Whatever your focal point is, that's where the camera is going to meter the light for. And that's all you want. You don't want the whole tree to be properly exposed, or the pond or whatever else that you're taking a picture of. You just want the bird properly exposed or the animal properly exposed. So tip number 3 is spot metering. Tip number 2 is autofocus. I think this is one setting that a lot of people don't change because they don't understand it. It's pretty straightforward. Out of the box, your camera is set up to shoot 1 shot. So what it will do is, if you're going to take a continuous shot of 5 pictures, the camera will focus the first time on the item that you're taking a picture, and the next 4 shots it won't refocus. Now, the second setting that you usually have in your camera is all focus. What that means is that for every picture it will focus. It will not only focus for the first one, but it will focus for the next 4 pictures. And the last setting that most cameras have is all servo. This is the one you should use. If you have multiple focal points active, it will track a moving object inside those focal points and remain focused on that item. So for your autofocus, set them for all servo, and that will keep your animal hopefully in focus. Tip number 1 is focal points. I think this is the number 1 issue people have for not having their photographs focus, is that their camera is focusing on something other than the the bird or the animal that you're trying to take a picture of. So what I do is I have the center point of my camera is the only focal point I use on my camera. I don't use any of the other focal points. And when I want to take a picture of an animal, I put that focal point on the animal, and the camera knows exactly what I want it to focus on. It's not focusing on a branch or trees around it or a leaf. It's focusing on the animal that I want to take a picture of. So the number one tip that I would suggest to make you a better wildlife photographer is to use only one focal point. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel because that helps us in the YouTube world. Become a Patreon supporter. Your support allows us to keep doing this. My name is Sean Leahy. I want to thank you for watching.